Sounds good. So we got three people here. Suzanne obviously is one of the. She's set more records than just about anybody else in master swimming. She's also done a couple of English channels and Catalina and Manhattan and some other swims too. So definitely she's got probably more experience in the bay than just about anybody on the planet. Patti is. It's interesting because she didn't actually go after the common swim. She's actually done a lot of like really cool swims that are just amazing, like Loch Ness, and I mean some really amazing long and cold swims. Yeah. I am recently retired from open water swimming. I've done a bunch of swims, English Channel, Irish Sea, some good ones, but I had 3 cardiac arrests in December, and so my swimming is going to be very limited from here on out. But I just tried kayaking today, and you guys are doing the fucking wrong sport. I hate to tell you, it is so fun kayaking. It's so easy, and you get to be out in the bay. But anyway, this is about swimming, so I'll try and have some enthusiasm for that. Let's see. I figured that. Do you guys have a preference on what we start with? No, you want to do training first? Okay. I'll start off with training. I'll talk for a minute or two, and then I'll let Suzanne talk because I think she's got probably more to say on this than just about anybody. But you can obviously ask any one of the three of us. We've also got some other pretty serious swimmers. One of the best pilots in around here for sure. Yeah, and a swimmer. But so feel free to ask questions as we're going. I've got I think I've got enough here. This is a sample training plan. It's and I know Suzanne's going to talk more, even more about this, but you basically want to look at your season, the amount of time that you have until you swim. I usually try to think in at least 16 weeks. 16 weeks is about 4 months, and if you think about your high school swim season, you're going to get in high school you get about 3 months. That's not quite long enough for one of these swims, but in 4 or 5 or 6 months you could get ready for just about anything. English Channel might be kind of a push, to do in your first season, but at the same time though, there's a lot that you can do in one season, and again, you're looking at a minimum of about 16 weeks. A lot of times you want to think about starting in the pool, get your technique down. What this is it's really broken up into kind of 4 segments. One where you're building your base. You just kind of start, you get in the water, you freeze your ass off, it's miserable, and then you move to actually building, where you're actually getting longer and longer and starting to do some longer swims. Then you really build your base, where you're building up to your big swim. It's going to be typically your qualifying swim, and then after that is taper. So there's 4 sections to your season. They're not going to be even. Taper is usually going to be more like 2 or 3 weeks. The bulk of your training should be. There are 2 things that are important to understand about training for any long distance swim. One is that you should do 2/3 of the distance of the swim. 3/4 if you think that this is easier conditions than where you're actually going to be swimming. But 2/3 to 3/4 of your swim about 4 or 5 weeks before your swim. You don't want to do it 3 weeks before or 2 weeks before because you're going to be recovering. And you don't want to do it so far out that you're not ready. That you went and did it, and now all that effort is not going to be useful. So 2/3 to 3/4 of the swim. The other thing is that you want to be averaging about the distance of your swim every week. So you think about a marathon runner; they're going to run 26 miles a week. You do more than that, you're going to start. You probably will be starting to think about shoulders, which you don't want to do. So try and do that. The other thing too is that you can look at that sample schedule there, or the sample training plan, and the nice thing about that is you don't need to do it perfectly. Let's say that you happen to have the exact day of the swim, and you happen to have the exact distance, and that was your swim, and you use my little plan there. A-, okay? A- is going to be like 90, 91, 92%. If you get most of the weeks with most of the distance, maybe a couple a little longer, a couple a little shorter, but you're pretty much doing it. That'll get you ready. B+, 87%. You're starting to take your chances a little bit. B-, I wouldn't want to walk into a swim with a D- effort. So so you could put those things together. I'm glad to talk to you guys more about that after. Anytime, I'm glad to give people my email address to talk more about training plans. But I think right now what I'd like to do is give it to Sam because I think she'll be able to talk more.
Okay. Pile. So, hi. The beauty about this is that I always say none of us are skilled as all of us. So you have a lot of different ideas going back and forth, and I'm sure when it comes to the Q&A that hopefully we can learn from you as well and what you've found has worked. So I've been a member of the Dolphin Club for over 41 years, and I have kind of an interesting swim career. I actually started open water swimming here in the Bay, doing a lot of the swims, trying to figure out the tides and the currents. I don't know if there are any old timers here, but Norm Peterson helped me out on a lot of swims. He was a South Ender. There were some other South Enders that would be supportive on the swims, at some of the swims that we did. I remember when we first did the Beta Breakers, they thought that I was going to fall off the end of the world. That was like a big deal to go out past the gate. Now it's like a standard, training swim back and forth. It's kind of funny how it was years ago. I also, so I started out with long distance swims, the English Channel 3 times, and then a 3-way relay, which I have to say relays are one of the hardest things to do because you usually go in hour increments. So it's like you swim as hard as you can, and then you get out and you vibrate for a couple hours. So it's really hard to warm up. And then I kind of morphed into more of the pool swimming. Well, no, marathon swimming. I was used to race 25Ks, so that's a full-on race with the new U.S. national team. So now we're talking speed, and I'm going to kind of get into about how to train for speed. And then it kind of morphed into the pool swimming with some 10Ks here and there. Still pretty competitive. And then I left the long distance swimming, and then I became motivated by a lot of the people from the South End, Patti and Steve, and there's some other people, the more mature athlete set that, now that I've kind of the over 60 crew, things are not the same as they were in the 20s. And I have a training plan that was way back in 1985, so you can check that out. There is no way I could ever do something like this. So have a look at that. And if you can see that. And, well, it's really small. Yeah, oh, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve. As far as the training, so I train, I like to vary my workouts and still maintain some speed. And you can still, on your off season, I like to have more of the speed training, still stay in touch with the colder water once or twice a week. So I have a little bit different take on things. And then, as Steve said, about 16 or I'd even like longer, 20 weeks, since I'm not in the Bay all the time, we start switching the workouts to more open water or more cold water or more long distance. But there's 5 training days or different ways that I like to train. You have your aerobic, you have your threshold, you have your VO2 max, which is really hard, you have your lactate and your speed, and then you have your long easy distance days. So I like to vary my workouts accordingly. So your aerobic workouts are longish, about 60 to 70% effort. And you want to have 60 to 70% effort with about 20, 25 seconds rest. So you might want to go with a set of 10 400s in the pool, because I can't get over here to the Bay. I live over in Walnut Creek. Can't get over here, so I'll do a lot of pool swimming. 10 400s, 60, 70%, kind of chill. Meanwhile, before I've even done that, I do a 2400 for time. This is long course. So you want to go all out on a 2400 for time, and you get your pace. So if you say you're going to, let's just say a 130 per 100 is what you're averaging, that's going to be your threshold. So if you're going to do your aerobic workouts, your aerobic is going to be a little bit, maybe 2 seconds per 100 slower than that. And then if you want to do your threshold, that is at the 130 pace, or sometimes T-1 or 2. How many people here work out in a pool? Okay. So if I'm talking a little bit about the pool stuff, but I think it's important to stay in touch with some speed so that you have an idea of what you can go for a mile. so that when you're swimming for 40 minutes, you know that, oh, maybe I've swum a mile and a half, or maybe if I do a 25-minute mile, you have an idea in your head, even though the tide is against you. Like this morning, it was flooding. Sometimes it might take a half hour to get to Gas House Cove, or if you're going on an ebb, it might take you 10 minutes. All right, so you have an idea of how far you're swimming time-wise. Okay, then you have your VO2 max, and then your VO2 max is about 85 to 90% you only can do this for 15 to 20 minutes, and those are hard. That would be like 5 400s with like 15 seconds rest, and those are swum really, really quickly. And then I even like to do some lactate or speed sets or sprint to kind of activate those other muscles, make sure that things are alive and you still have some speed. And one of the reasons we train for speed is because when you're swimming the English Channel, all of a sudden you have the tide that's going against you. You need to get your A into G, and you need to move it. So that's where you have to call up and dig deep. Some other things that we did, and then you have your long, easy distance day, which might be, going a 1,000 pull, a 1,000 kick, a 1,000 swim. I vary it. I use snorkels. I use paddles. I use all sorts of toys. So I have here, so I kind of play around. These are some workouts, and I put them on little index cards, and then I sometimes will take the index cards and I'll put them in this big bowl, and I'll pick one out so I don't know what that day is going to bring. And it used to be that when I had a coach, we do monthly 10,000s for time. And we never know when I would do the 10,000 for time. Similar to all of a sudden, you're swimming Catalina and you have a 1 knot current against you, and you got to pick it up and go. Is that Sylvia? Sylvia was on my train. So this is my training plan. I took it out. I had other issues for Catalina, which I did last year. I had some other issues. This is the real training plan. This is so you can read it. So I was doing a training swim, I think May of 2018, jumped off a rock in Lake Del Val. They have this big boulder. You swim like 3K, and then you jump off this boulder, and you think it's really fun, but I landed flat feet and couldn't walk. So yeah, it was not good. So I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to do this, so I had to be really systematic. The other thing that I looked at was, in case you wanted to see some old school 1985 observer logs, kind of fun. And that one was, you can see when you're doing your feeds, and I'm sure Steve will get into this later, but you don't have a 9-course meal. Very short feed times. 10 to 15 seconds, unless you're busy growing up, which was new to me. So the time between my first channel was 85, Manhattan was 2014, Catalina was last year in October. I had a lot of new things because your body undergoes different changes as you become older, I think. Obviously, I had to take more rest days because I was, I couldn't maintain the 80,000 a week that I would be going in the pool and in the bay. So a lot of times I would be doing have a 3-hour workout in the pool and come to the bay and swim for another hour and a half or 2 hours. You can only sustain that for so long. Luckily, I've been fairly, aside from my joint with the whole thing, but shoulders-wise, I've been okay. So far, so good. I have a whole protocol that I do for exercise for primary prevention. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I take away. I'd like to leave you with is that the way that I train is that I really vary my workouts between aerobic, anaerobic, VO2 max, threshold, and long, easy distance recovery, so that you're training the different systems in your body. You're not doing the same thing. and that wakes up your body, also tires you, because after you do a VO2 max, you want to make sure you follow it up with a recovery day as well. So that would be my takeaway for you. All right?
One more thing, if you're doing, sorry.
I'm gonna do this too, come in and
Okay.
add a little
Okay.
color.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you, I know that there are different people doing different things out here. Some of you guys might want to be doing a 10K. A 10K is a marathon. A 10K, you probably want to be at the higher end of that. Like if you look at my training plan, you could probably get by with, you should probably do more than 10K a week, but it might be like 15K a week, which is like 9 miles. So, like whatever your goals are, you can definitely, take all the workouts that you're looking at here and shape them to be the distance that you're going. If you guys are doing channels, you're going to need to get the miles in. You're going to need to be doing what Suzanne and Patti and I are doing. If you're doing, a 10K though, there's a lot of, it's a very big difference in what you're doing there.
So I'm going to leave you with some of these books. These are so I was training anything from the pool to racing 25Ks. So if you want some ideas for workout, they're a little bit of a mess, but you can see the real deal. You can get an idea of some of the workouts, because you're always looking for different kinds of workouts.
And I think Suzanne, with her variety of workouts, one thing I just want to emphasize here is I think you said it, I'm just worth repeating. Like there's a mantra in endurance sports, like you train for the worst and hope for the best. You really need to train in kind of a variety of circumstances. And it's so, this is amazing what we have out here. So, train on a windy day, train on a really large flood or get those conditions. Would encourage you to go down to Monterey, which is one of my favorite places to train. It's really, really good mentally as well as physically. And even regardless of the distance you're doing, a 10K out at Delville, what was this, 2 years ago? It was like windy as heck, and it was a hard swim, right? And everyone was like, it's normally not such a difficult course. So,
but as marathons, we were like, great.
Yeah, exactly,
Great.
exactly. So that variety is really important too, not just in terms of the sets or whatever you're doing, but it's the conditions, really, really powerful. And it's also, again, really important mentally that you can plow through a really choppy water while all your competitors are slowing down. So having that variety is really good too. It's part of your training.
I'd say the same thing for temperature as well. You want to be thinking about the temperature that you're going to be swimming in. If you're swimming in the English Channel is just about the same temperature as here through the summer, so you can get ready for it pretty easily. Monterey is a little colder, I think. Faroe Islands are a little colder. Irish Sea is way colder. So you've got to kind of think about what you're doing there. Ice baths, forget it, they don't work. What you want to do is think about how much time you're spending and how cold the water is. As you're getting ready to, you want to start off with, go out and see how far you can swim. Do it in a nice, safe environment, like inside the cove. Flags even if you want to, but get your base. Let's say that your base is 25 minutes at 54 degrees. The water temperature is going to be either dropping or rising because it's never the same in the bay. But if you're going 25 minutes at 54, the next day go 28 minutes at 54. And if it drops to 53, try to hold that. If it goes up, try to do more. But just make sure that your acclimatization is matching your training goals as well.
Yeah, temperatures, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of places around here. When I trained for Loch Ness, and Loch Ness is a little cold.
It's a little cold.
We wound up going up into Oregon and some other lakes just to get that training in, because that swim was in September, and I needed to have colder water closer to, because otherwise again, mentally, it's really, really important that you know that you can swim through that.
Yeah. I think something else too. I always think of this as being a triangle. You've got 3 pieces to all the training. One is the physical part. You've got to get the miles in, and I think Suzanne was especially talking about that, which that's awesome the way that she organizes her thoughts on this. The second one is mental. You've got to actually be ready to go out and do it. You've got to have the confidence that you can do it, and you've got to know that, if you look at my training plan, you can see that there's that big swim about 3/4 of the way through your season. You have to know that you can do it. And going back to the conditions too, same thing. Shitty conditions are great for training because you know how bad it's going to get. You know that you can survive even if it gets bad. The third one is neurological. The neurological is being able to shunt. You can't just mentally come up with something because you think you can do it. There's no bullshit. I've had some people around here who've said, hey, can you give me a training plan? And then they didn't do the swims. It's like, you're not going to mentally be able to get through a fucking swim just because you have so much grit and determination. It doesn't work that way. It helps, but you need to, physiologically, you need to be able to shunt blood away from your skin and your extremities and control it. You need to be able you need to have that muscle memory so that you know that you can do it. And the three of these things really go together. It's not any, you can't do it with any one or any two. You have to have all three.
Mm-hmm.
You can say shunt.
Shunt, yeah. You know what shunting is?
No, I don't.
It's your body naturally does it. It's when you are in hot or cold temperatures, water especially, but anything, your body will either vasodilate or what's the other one? Constrict.
For the temperature.
Yeah, you're sending blood either towards or away from your skin, and it's an effort to keep your core at a constant temperature. So when you get out in cold water, it's interesting because your body just naturally does it. In theory, you don't have any control over it. The reality is that when you start to do a lot of swimming, you start to actually have control over it. The other thing too is there's the shunting is part of it. The other part is that when you go faster or slower, you create heat or create less heat, and you can decide, like what your effort level is versus what your need for warmth is. And so being able to do that, that's all physiological and neurological. So you need all three. Yeah. Do you want to talk about strokes real quick?
Strokes?
Yeah, like you were talking about, no, I mean like in rough water and stuff, like longer, shorter, finishing, not finishing, chop, as a freestyle.
Yeah, I think what I would sort of start off with saying like stroke and thinking about swimming in open water in different conditions. If you don't currently bilaterally breathe, really, really focus on that skill. It's important to be able to adjust your breathing if conditions change. You start out and the waves are sort of mild and they pick up and all of a sudden it's on your right side. It's really difficult to keep breathing if you're breathing on that right side. So that's like, I would start out by saying, was thinking about stroke, that bilateral breathing is really, really important. You can practice it in the pool, but definitely practice it out here for sure. Yeah.
Now, Steve, do you bilateral breathe?
I can bilateral breathe. I don't usually, but like my Catalina, I had to, I had a shitty Catalina, and I had to bilateral breathe. I had to breathe on my other side, and I learned how to do it in college, and I had to basically relearn it very fast. Because if you don't do it, you're gonna, like if you need it, if the water's hitting you from the left side and you breathe on the left side, you better be breathing to the right side.
Well, that didn't work for me. Remember, all of us are not as skilled as, none of us are skilled as all of us.
Yeah.
So I did not. So what I do, I work it with a snorkel. When it's very flat, I can do it. But I breathe really into a pocket here.
Yes.
So you're swimming, and I really breathe back underneath this arm. And just know that if the wind is coming that way, you can just expect to swallow some water. And that's just the way it is. But I also have to make sure I maintain that protocol for shoulders because one side is more developed than the other. So I'm like, yeah, if you can bilateral breathe.
You can learn it.
Yeah.
Do
it. So you got really good at bilateral breathing. Kind of can do it, and no.
Do it.
The other things, there are a couple of other things that are really important to know. If you're swimming with the current, bring your cadence up. It's not a problem because if you're swimming with the current, and what I'm really talking about is the surface current. So chop and wind especially. But if you're in a situation where it's nice and easy, cadence nice and high, you don't have to worry so much about finishing your stroke. On the other, if you're swimming against the current, because you're gonna need to take more strokes because if you don't, you're gonna lose ground. On the other side, if you're with the current, you can take nice, long, easy strokes, finish every stroke, and really, really get the most out of that current that's pulling you down. If you're in chop, you want to think about where your head is. If there's a lot of chop, you want to keep your head down while you're swimming, but your head up while you breathe so you don't get a mouthful of water. And that's actually really important, where if you're swimming in nice flat conditions, You want to have a nice even head and a perfect like pencil through your head kind of rotation. So like in a pool, you swim perfectly. Out here, you don't necessarily, and you have to adapt to the conditions. If you're swimming in long waves, change the cadence of your speed of your stroke. Because if let's say that you've got a wave coming every 6 seconds, if you're in a situation where you're hitting that wave at 5.5 seconds, you're screwed. So think about what the wave is doing as much as anything else, because your cadence can change. If your cadence is longer, take a longer finish. If your cadence is slower, you don't need to finish so much and put a little bit more power in the front end. What do you guys think about catch?
Well, first back on, that's called,
Yeah.
I call tempo swimming. Cadence
Yes.
is tempo swimming. And open water is a little different than the pool swimming, because pool swimming you try to be a little more efficient. And here is tempo, it's keeping that tempo going, especially through choppy water, especially if you've got tide or current against you, you want to keep that tempo up. Catch, they always promote the high elbow catch, which takes, if you have any issues with your elbow, when you drop your elbow, that's one of the things is injury is dropping your elbow. So you try to keep your elbow above your hand. Keep your tempo going.
Yeah, the tempo going is also important for generating body heat. I mean, I
Yes.
think we sort of all know that, but it's worth saying that having the endurance to keep that tempo going and that's one of the markers, right? I think everyone knows here, so hypothermia, if your cadence slow down so dramatically, they know that's a sign of hypothermia, right? You're not generating the body heat, you're actually slowing down your motion, so those are very much interrelated, and having that tempo is important. Again.
So back to the pool, for those of you who can't get to the bay, so a little bit of mind games here. So during that 2400 for time, you can get your stroke rate for a 50 or for 100, right? Okay, so you're going at a good clip, and it's just fairly good distance, 2400 for time. So then you say maybe you have let's just say 100 strokes or 80 strokes. So I'm doing 80 strokes for 100 meters. So then I play all these games. So these are some of the things when you're swimming really long distance. Okay, so 80 strokes for 100 meters. 800 strokes would be 1,000 meters. Then you see where I'm going with this? So it kind of gives me an idea. These are one of the little mind games that I do. I don't know what Steve and Patti do, but those are some of the mind games that I go, okay, so after 1,600 strokes, then I should be this far along, if this far, like all these little math computations. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll give you guys actual numbers. I piloted for a guy who was doing 48 strokes per minute, and if the water hadn't been 72, he would have failed. You can't do a 60-degree swim at 48 cadence. 56 is a little on the slow side. Like I know Ariana's around here someplace. Ariana, she's probably got a 56 cadence. You're going to have trouble keeping warm in cold water at that distance. So at that cadence. When you're talking 60, you're probably just about right for most temperatures. It varies a little bit. I think Ariana can stay warmer. She's got a little bit more ability, so she can do it a little slower. But 60 is a nice cadence. When the water starts getting colder, you're going to need 66, 72. If you're starting to get up around 76, 78, that's pool swimming territory, and you're not going to be able to sustain that for very long. So, you've got that balance between staying warm and going faster versus, being able to hold that for a longer distance. If you're doing a marathon swim, you might want to keep it up at 72, maybe even higher. But if you're doing a 10-mile swim or a 20-mile swim, you're going to need to really, be much more precise with what you're doing. Yeah.
So when you say the water gets colder, you have to increase that time, that pace, that cadence. When you say the water gets colder, what levels? What would you say are the? It's
individual, but I'm looking at you right now. I'd say that you're pretty skinny. If you're going if you're in 50-degree water, you're not going to last much more than an hour at 70 tempo. So you're probably going to need 72, 74, or 76. Because the more body fat you have on you, the more you're going to be able to stay warm. But on the other side of that, if you're skinny, you're going to need more speed, which is going to generate more heat, and you're going to need that heat.
And how do you get that speed, Steve?
Practice and working out.
You know, and part of it
Speed
is,
from the pool.
In the pool.
and part of that is sometimes when people think of marathon swimming and long distance, they just like, okay, I'm just going to go out there for hours and just be. You kind of have to put, and people are afraid to like push to puke level. You really don't have to puke, but you get the idea. You have to push a little bit to get some speed. Especially if you're not gifted with a lot of insulation, you're going to have to work on some
Like
speed to get the heck out of there fast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the rule of thumb, because it's interesting, like with all different body types, is it better to sort of beef up on your weight and body mass before a swim, put on some weight?
I'll repeat the question.
Repeat the question.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
what's the...
Yeah. It's a good segue into nutrition anyway. So.
Yeah.
So the question was about body fat, body types, body fat, lean, and
Actually, hold on that for just a sec. I had one more thought on the stroke stuff, just real quick. On your stroke, you want to have perfect entry. Okay, that's going to mean a couple of things. So it's like every coach has ever told you in the pool. You want your hand to go in, your fingers to go straight down the moment that they hit, and your elbow to be higher than your wrist. Okay, high elbow all the way through. Now, the one big difference between open water swimming and pool swimming is that the water doesn't stay still, and so when you're going in there, you're going to have two problems if you do like what butterflyers do in the pool. The first one is that you're going to damage your shoulders as the water is moving. So the other one is that you're going to expend a lot of energy. They're trying to go fast for 100 or 200 or 400 yards. But the thing is that we're trying to go fast or medium over 4,000 or 40,000 yards. And so if you take that and you push hard, you need to have perfect form through your entry. But at the same time, though, you don't have to push very hard. So you don't have to grab a lot of water. You don't have to push a lot of water. But your hand needs to be in the right position, including the high elbow. If you don't have that high elbow, which is caused by shoulder rotation, you've got to rotate your shoulder in. When you rotate your shoulder in, your elbow will be higher than your wrist. Doesn't need to be way higher like this or anything like that. But you need to have good form going through that first part of your stroke. Otherwise, you will develop shoulder problems. But you don't need to push hard like you would in a pool. Like Suzanne can really crank. If she's doing 100 or 200, she's gonna absolutely have tons of power through that beginning part. But not out here. You don't want to do that. Something else too is that Suzanne was talking about doing things in the pool. I don't like the pool. I mean, I'm going to be swimming in the pool a lot more because I can't swim out here now. But the thing is that you can also do flags. Like what I was doing a lot was I would go 10 quarter miles. It's actually a little less than a quarter mile, but I'd go 10 laps, and every third one I would go absolute all-out sprint. And that's a workout. And like you could look at that and say, okay, where does that fit into Suzanne's piece? But I guarantee you that meshes a lot because you have to have that speed work for when the current changes on you. You need to go fast.
Well, and there is something called the fartlek training.
Right.
And the fartlek training would be something like that, but you don't want to do that again every day. You vary it.
Right.
You can go to the Appleton Hall, as fast as you can, and then cruise back, or do longer to the opening and back to the Appleton Hall as hard as you can get, and with an easy recovery to the dock here at the south end. So you can do that like 5 or 6 times, and there's all sorts of ways that you can vary it. And then again, none of us are skilled as all of us, and his least favorite thing is the pool, and for me it's just a matter of me just convenience. I can't get over here all the time, so I have to be in the concrete box. I'd much prefer to be over here.
Should we go back to Tina's question?
Yes, Tina, body
Perfect,
types.
yes.
Body types.
Yes.
Why don't you start and then we'll go down the line?
Okay, so
From
body
use the
types.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that.
So body type.
different.
Again, it depends what I'm going to be doing for the English channel. I probably wanted to, and this happens naturally. As soon as I reduce the intensity of my pool swimming, I'm not as lean, and I have a little bit more insulation, and that's okay. And I like that insulation. Or I need to get, if New Year's Day, I need to know that I need to be on my game. The water temperature, actually it's not that cold. I mean, it's like, it used to be like 46, so okay, it's 50. But I need to be on my game, and I need to get out there and get fast. And my motivation is to get in the sauna and make sure there's enough hot water for me, okay? So, but that's because it's in the middle of my training. But as soon as it starts, I start upping it for long 10-hour swims. The intensity drops, and the long, easy distance, and so I am able to put on some weight. Or interestingly, my weight might drop because I lose muscle. You know how all that works.
And I think it's
Yeah.
some weight is really the important thing. Like when I first joined the South End, which might have been around 2006, I don't remember the year. I mean, I would hear like, you got to put on 40 pounds or 30 pounds on the English Channel. I'm like, wait, what? So you want to be healthy, right? At the end of the day, this is really, each person is different. Everybody has a different constitution and a different sort of starting point. When I did Loch Ness, which was 50 and warmed up to 51 over that swim, which was a 12-hour swim, I had put on probably 15 pounds, maybe 17 pounds. And that was enough. And I mean, it was edgy. I mean, it was definitely edgy that entire swim. But at the same time, like I didn't want to have this yo-yo of weight gain and loss, weight gain and loss. That's not healthy either. So you just kind of have to find your own sort of settling. But I just would say be very careful about what it is, like how far you go with it. And just don't go overboard. I think that's really key. Because people will tell, you get done and you have like a big breakfast, or you go and get, like, I had this funny conversation with Simon Dominguez about how many breakfasts he would eat. And I was like, oh, you have 2 breakfasts. And then he scratched his head. He goes, well, I do stop at the drive-thru at McDonald's, so I intentionally have 3 breakfasts. And I'm like, oh, geez, like it's too much, right? It's just, So, and you want to eat healthy. That's the other piece of this too. It's not even just adding some insulation. It's like what you're doing to add that insulation. You don't want to, go out and eat cakes and donuts and all that kind of stuff. You need to be aware of your body sugar. You're really putting your body through a lot, and it doesn't matter the distance you're doing. This is really, you're athletes. Like your body is really, really important in what we do and how we treat this. We're just in a unique sport where the insulation, the vessel, as Kim says, is important, and you just got to make sure that it's a balance.
So back in 85, 86, the traditional thought was, and that's when Lynn Cox was doing all their stuff, and she is well insulated. And so it was like, Suzanne, I had all these little Italians, Saviano here, and Perdonato here, and Cecco Minucci over there, and they're like bringing me all this food, like, here, honey, eat this food, you need to eat this food, you need to eat this food.
It's part of your training.
Yeah. Yeah, you just no. So you have to find the sweet spot for yourself, and as Patti said, you don't want to go on the up and down, 15, 20 pounds, and yeah.
Yeah. So for the English Channel in '96, which was, what, you swam in '95?
85.
No, but I mean the one right before me.
85, 86.
I think someone right before me too.
85.
Okay.
I did twice 85, once 86.
Okay. Well, so anyway, in '96, I gained 50 pounds. 50 pounds over this weight right now. Okay, so 50. I'm at my wedding weight right now, and I was 50 pounds heavier. So it's not good. There's nothing good about being that heavy. It just doesn't feel good. And in all honesty, I think it probably hurt my English Channel, not the other way around. So for the Irish Sea, which was like 7 degrees colder, it's 54. I think I gained 13 pounds. So, that's pretty reasonable, and it didn't have to try. Just swimming in cold water did most of it. And, like the last few pounds came when I started tapering, so I'd definitely say that.
But you also have speed.
Yeah. And I didn't lose that speed, with the weight, whereas in the English Channel
You probably lost some speed. Yeah.
Probably did, quite a bit, yeah. So now food. I'll start.
He's
a
food guru.
Yeah, well, Patti too. I think I know you think about it, but I know Patti does a lot. So I'll start. Let's see. So I've been insulin resistant probably because of that 50 pounds that I gained and kept on through kids. I've been insulin resistant for 10 years. So I think that carbs in general, like you want to have the exact opposite food in the water that you would have outside of the water. So, and like Patti will have something different to say about this too, but my opinion, you want it as simple and as processed as possible when you're eating, food in the bed. Sugar. just straight sugar. Whereas outside of the bay, you want as little sugar and as little starch as possible. You want to stay away from omega-6 fatty acids. You want to have monounsaturated fats. If you have some saturated fat, it's fine, even a fair amount. If you have a lot of meat, it's okay. I've been talking to a lot of cardiology people lately, and it's turning out that saturated fat is, not great, but it's nothing compared to omega-6 fatty acids, which is like corn oil. It's nothing compared to processed foods. It's nothing compared to carbs. Carbs, those are the three things that really do the damage. Meat is slightly inflammatory. It's not necessarily bad for you, but a lot of meat can be more inflammatory. And so, meat is something that you need to decide yourself. If you're vegetarian, that's fine. But if you're not, you do need to get protein for sure. And there's lots of different ways to get it. Fish, poultry, cheese. If you're not vegan, being a vegan and doing this sport though would be pretty hard. I can't imagine really doing that successfully. I know a couple of people who do, but they can't. They can't gain the weight. B, they're not getting. They're getting too many calories through carbohydrates, and so you need. Protein turns into carbohydrates in your body too. It just does it much more slowly. So it's much better for you that way. So you kind of want to think that way. And then the other two things that are like incredibly important are fiber and water. You want to make sure that you're staying really well hydrated the whole time you're swimming, the whole time after you swim, 24 hours a day. You want to be thinking water, liquids. The other thing is tons of fiber. Just, fiber is the best thing for you. Now, when you're out there, you can go 3 or 4 hours without drinking. Not the smartest thing to do. You can, doesn't mean that you should. So try to drink water, I try to drink water every hour. I don't know, Patty's probably a little bit different. I think both of these guys are probably a little different.
For sure.
But I try to drink about 9 ounces of water every hour. It's kind of hard to absorb more than 12 ounces of water in an hour, especially when you're swimming. But, as much as you can. The other side is calories. With calories when you're out there, 350 to 425 is kind of the range of calories that you can have in an hour without actually feeling sick. And that's just scientific. You could do it, you could have a couple of 600 calorie hours, but the problem is that if you do that 3 or 4 hours in a row, you are going to get sick. It's not your stomach can't process more than that. So you want to make sure that those calories are going to be really, really effective calories. Why don't I turn it over to you at this point?
Okay, that's a good segue. So, just without saying we're horizontal, so we have a lot of sloshing going on. Yeah.
In regards to the water, you're in water, whether it's fresh water or salt water. Sometimes you drink water, right? Are you drinking water in addition to accidental drinking the water?
If you're in salt water, the salt that you are drinking requires you to drink more water. So you shouldn't have any salt in your feeds because of that. If you're in fresh water, hopefully it's not too rough that you're drinking a lot of water. If you're drinking a lot of water, you're probably not. Your swimming form is probably not that good. On my English channel, 20-something years ago, I probably drank, if I had to guess, I'd probably about 50 ounces of water. And it was a really, really rough, brutal day. I've never had another swim where I drank that much, usually like in salt water. I was just kind of estimating, but I think the most I've had in any other swim was maybe 10 or 12 ounces. If you're doing a 5-hour swim and you only drink 12 ounces of water and it's salt water, you're gonna be so sick.
Yeah, your stomach, the whole GI distress is something you're just going to have to practice sort of on your own is to figure out what works for you. But it's really, really important. Hydration. So I did a test, and I would encourage you guys all to do it too. Swim for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. Don't take any water in. Don't hydrate. Weigh yourself before, weigh yourself afterwards, and see how much you lose because you sweat and you don't realize it. I lost about 4 pounds. Right, so and that's a big deal. So that kind of gives you an insight of what's happening in your system. If you're not hydrated, your heart works harder to pump your blood. It's more sort of viscous and sludgy. So hydration is a really, really big deal. And hydration, with electrolytes in it is a really, really good idea. Your crew can help you if you're going out here. get a floaty and put a bottle on the floaty as well, and keep track of it. One of the things, like the last thing I'll just kind of say about hydration is that your crew, if you're doing a longer swim and you have a crew with you, make sure they're tracking how much you're taking in, not just calories, but how much you're drinking, and if you're peeing. Peeing is important. You've got to make sure your system is working. So all of that stuff is totally interrelated. In terms of nutrition, and I tend to do a little bit more balance around proteins. So out of the water, I tend to do a mix of proteins and carbs. Try to minimize sugar, although I have a big sweet tooth, so that doesn't always work very well. But I don't want a long ice cream, that kind of thing. Actually, on a long swim, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing a 5K or something that's longer, just put together a feeding plan. I started out, when I did these swims, I started out doing feeding every 20 minutes, just because I needed that. I need those calories at that frequency. Then I kind of taught myself to move to a half an hour. And the reason why I made that adjustment is because every time you feed, you're staying still, you can lose body heat, current might push you back. So for me, I needed to get to where, especially for the English Channel and cook straight, just wanted to feed quickly and go. But start out with something that works for you and then adjust. And then what I do that works really well for my system is I do the form of carbs that I do on a swim is toddler food. You guys all know those little sachets. First of all, it's just pureed fruit. It's clean. It's super easy. Your crew can hand it to you. You can stick it in your suit out here. Really, really simple. And then the protein I take in are those Justin nut butter packages. Those are terrific. They're super easy to get out. So that's the protein that I do, and I do those on the half an hour, and then I always take in something to drink. And I do use Perpetuum, which is designed as an ultra sort of powder. It's for ultra marathons and Ironmans. It's got a lot of protein in it and carbs. It's a really well-formulated powder you can buy at any sports store.
Have you seen it again?
It's Perpetuum. It's made by Hammer. Hammer is the manufacturer, and Perpetuum is the brand and the type. And easy to mix up, and your crew can do it. You can put it out here. That just works really well for me because I look to put in about 350 calories an hour. I don't typically go over that. That works for me. Encourage you to experiment, sort out, find out how you feel. Just be really aware of how you're feeling in the water and out of the water, and if you make sure you don't have a drop afterwards. You should feel good when you get out of the water.
I have a question. So if you're doing a longer swim and you're not hungry, but your crew, for whatever reason, maybe you're still on point and your crew's like, no. I get the drinking thing, they'll make you drink, but they're like, you should eat this. And your cadence is, you're
should eat it.
Should you still eat it?
You should eat it, yeah. Yeah, you really should. Because, you've got another couple of hours to go. You have no idea if the conditions are going to change. It can become a really hard swim within the next hour, and you need to have a tank. You've got to have it in your tank to be able to go.
Unless you're feeling sick.
Unless you're
Yeah,
feeling
that is of course.
Unless you're feeling sick.
Unless you're feeling sick, but if you're feeling
just
really full,
take
is
it
that
in.
counts being sick?
You got to decide whether it's sick or full.
Yeah, so what I would probably do if I were your crew, I might be like, if you're really insistent, I might be okay, knowing that in a half an hour you are gonna eat, right? You will. So that's probably how I would do it. If you were really
Another
backed
thing you
out.
could do too is you could say, let's stop again in 15. Let's not stop now. Stop again in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell your crew, I want to go 15 minutes longer. Another thing too is you could eat half. But
Yeah.
you should really you need sugar for sure. Now protein protein is a good thing to have on a swim, but in very small amounts. Right? I know
the nut butters.
Yeah. So you and I differ on the nuts. I don't like the nuts because they scratch my throat going down. Even the Justins I love outside the water. It's the first thing I want when I get out, but in the water not so much. And just and there's nothing wrong with different opinions. You should try it out and see what you like best. Another thing is, and this one I hope you guys agree with me, but this one, salt. You don't need more salt because, to your question, you're going to swallow some water and it's going to have more salt than you
Right.
need. If you're doing a lake swim, you need salt.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just like, it's not as much as running, but you're going to need salt.
Yeah, that's right.
Potassium, so the cramping is not caused by potassium, lack of potassium, because they did some scientific stuff and figured out that you will pass out from lack of potassium in your brain before you have problems with potassium in your muscles. So potassium is necessary. It's important, and like if you're not using it, potassium, magnesium, things like that. But be balanced before you go on a swim. It's not 12 hours in the water is probably not going to cause it. If you're going 36, 20, 24, 36, 48 hours, different considerations. But it's water. The water is what's going to cause cramping. And so if you're cramping, it's either going to be because you're not in good enough shape to do the swim, or because you're not drinking enough water.
What about electrolytes in the day?
You don't need salt, for sure, ever in the
Just
day.
regular water.
Water or sugar, something.
Yeah, and I
Vegetables,
think of fresh
arbor-
water is a really good point. That's really when I typically think about, like, that's something you need. And it's, again, like, understanding how much you sweat, like doing that weighing before and after will also help you kind of decide. But I think the difference between salt water and fresh water is an important point.
It is, yeah.
So Sylvia right here was my crew, and I've been on several swims with Sylvia. And as far as I give up all control, and they're the ones that are telling me to drink or not drink. You need to do this or you need to do that. My rule for these, I like the just as nuts as well. When I can,
They taste good.
when I can tolerate them. My rule is you have to like it as much coming up as you do going down.
It's true.
So, I never had a problem before. I do get seasick, not in the ocean though, but like going out on the boat. So I have to be really careful about that. And and I had no problems on my channel swim. I think that as you get older, I think something flips in your ear and your equilibrium is just off. Anyway, so I did have an issue with vomiting only on the Catalina swim, but it was nothing to do with seasick, and it had to do with more, you could feel, and here I am, I'm like a practitioner of mindfulness, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can feel my stomach go like this. I'm vomiting. And it's like, really? So that was, I think, 3 times I vomited. And then finally the kayaker said, are you nauseated and feeling nauseous? I go, no. And then it registered, no, I'm not. It's my stomach is nervous. It's at night and I hadn't done this in a while. So it was nerves. It was not a nausea. So differentiate between nerves and nausea. So I was prepared. I had a drug called Zofran because you have to know yourself. I cut myself, I fall down, I'm a fainter, or something will upset me, and I'll have kidney stones from not drinking enough for all the years of being dehydrated. So I gave myself kidney stones. And so I was like, I'm a vomiter. So there's this drug you can take that will stop you from vomiting, Zofran. So I was prepared, but I don't like to do anything. So as soon as he offered me, he said, do you want your meds? And I go, no, I know what it is. And I know that I can get it together, and we did, and we carried on. So, Justin's nuts, and I'd like to take my organic diced peaches in a little can here, because they're really easy. This is for Justin, you saw me, yeah, he said. And they could just throw it to you, so we put a little thing on it, so you could throw it and pop it, right? And then the other thing that I liked was a wide mouth bottle. Now I would adapt this, since we're swimming late at night, I would adapt this and I would you can get those at the Container Store, they're spice bottles. I would put a Velcro or something tactile on it, because they throw it to you, and I couldn't find the top, so it's because I just want to go, and I couldn't find it. So that would be a little adaptation I would do, like Velcro or something that I could know which side to open. And again, wide mouth, so, not the suck thing, but the wide mouth. And then the other thing is, then I take and Sylvia's really good. She makes sure that she, pulls the top and just puts it in there so I can grab it. Applesauce was the other thing that I liked. I couldn't tolerate the fruit. There's too much sugar. You have to find what you like yourself. I train on dark cherry juice, diluted 1-to-3 ratio with a teaspoon of beet powder, because I don't like any of those other concoctions. My kind of rule is I have to be able to at least pronounce some of the ingredients. So I did find one, which was Scratch, that cyclists use. And the things I liked about Scratch was that you can heat it up and it doesn't mess up the molecular structure. Yes, Sylvia?
So, one of the
Can we
things.
pause just for a second, because we're running out of battery, and what we want to do is wrap it, and then we can do questions.
Okay.
I think, let's just keep going with this for a little longer if that's cool. I mean, we can change the battery, but let's,
We're not going to be able to change the battery, so let's wrap it, and then
Okay.
we'll go to questions.
And then
So
Sylvia has a question.
we'll do Sylvia's first, and then each one of you, like, the most important thing you.
well, I've got one more thing on this topic, but go ahead.
No, what I was gonna say is what, not you do, just you, Suzanne, but we do with now every swimmer, is our bottles are marked and measured on 4, 6, and 8 ounces. And that bottle goes out, and when it comes back, we write down how much the swimmer had.
Yeah, it's
Because
really
the swimmer needs to know, you need to know over your period of training, how much you actually took in. If you spit a lot out, I'm gonna deduct and know that you probably didn't get 4 ounces in or 6 ounces in. If you waved off a feed, we're marking that you waved off a feed. We're also gonna mark like, okay, we were doing intervals where we were pushing her really hard for 30 minutes, we were pushing a pack swimmer hard for 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And then if we delayed the feed, real food, like the number of swimmers who come in and they think they're gonna get through a 12-hour, 16-hour swim on boo is not gonna happen. And it's like Suzanne, you know, and Steve, you too, and but it's like real food. Real food, your body knows what to do with real food.
Yes.
You eat real food during the day. Eat real food during your swim. You can supplement with some gels and foods and other stuff, but that's not the day to try to be abnormal with your food. Is out there.
Yeah, I don't
You'll
advise-
get a stomach
I don't
When you say
advise
real
it.
food, like I'll eat cheeseburgers, we're not talking about cheeseburgers out there, we say real food
We're
specifically.
talking peaches.
Real carbs.
Well, even
toddler puree,
yeah, the toddler is
and
just
more
real food,
meats.
and so it's
Okay.
not just a nut butter; it's
Yeah.
real food. Yeah.
This is like horrible, but I bring out Hostess cupcakes
Yep.
and stuff like that because it tastes good, and candy too. You know, like you want
Candy's mints.
yeah, you want sugar
And
at
then
the
we
end
have
of it.
Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, Pop Tarts are really good.
Kit Kats.
Three Musketeers, nothing chewy, no caramel. For me, no caramel, no nuts. But like Three Musketeers is awesome because it's just fluffy.
Or Kit Kats stick to the roof of your mouth.
Shall we move into like
All right,
one thing?
all right. She has a question.
One takeaway.
We still got more on this though.
And then we'll come back and we'll shoot until this thing runs out.
Okay.
This way, we can get it on the website and be reasonable. You can stay as long as people have questions. We just can't get it all.
Well, why don't we just switch right now?
We don't have another battery.
Oh, okay.
What's the one takeaway? What's your one wisdom?
Train hard, be ready. I think that's my wisdom.
Yeah, I think yeah, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And that encapsulates everything, I think. So yeah.
So we hear train, and mine is the same thing. Train, but train your different systems so that you'll be ready for the current that comes at you, that you'll be ready to get up and go, that you can keep a good pace. So train, but train those different systems. All right.
Okay, so back to the topic that we're on. I like these bottles, these Gatorade bottles. I drink half-strength Gatorade, so orange, green, doesn't really matter. The top comes off really quickly. What I do is I use duct tape a piece of rope, and then I have one of those little hook things that the climbers use, carabiner. And then my rope has a carabiner too. I never, ever, as a crew or as a swimmer, I never reuse a bottle. If it went out, it gets dumped out. Because if you get salt water and it's fouled, and it's going to make you sick. So that's the other thing with the drinking.
Where are you putting the duct tape on? You're actually taping the.
Just tape it on, yeah. So you can clip and unclip it from your rope. You only need one rope.
And I have a entirely different system too.
Yeah. There are lots of good systems that
There's
work.
other-
Velcro, rubber
Yeah,
bands.
what-
I mean, there's lots
Just
of
an
stuff.
idea for you if you are swimming next to a kayaker, which I do in all my swims. I think English Channel is the only exception to that. I feed from the kayak. I don't feed from the boat. Again, English Channel is the only exception. And I really like the camelback bladder and the long tube because I just grab it and I take it in, and it's like there's no air. It's really simple. I can go on my back, I can take it in, and I just turn over and I go. So I really like the Camelback system. It works really well. When I have had to have a bottle, which was English Channel, something similar to Suzanne's, except I do like the kind where it has the straw because I don't get air. So I do take the one that flips up and has the straw, or that you suck off of it because I get no air. I like, that's my preference. So you should really experiment with what makes for you. The net of all of it though is that you want the fastest, most efficient way of feeding for yourself and your crew. And you do want to think about your crew. Your crew is like, it's in the dark, they're probably seasick, like whatever's going to be the easiest for them to actually prepare as well is a really big deal. In the beginning, I had, bless their hearts, they were so great to me. They would make mashed potatoes and they'd make all this stuff. And the boat is, they were amazing, but we finally landed on the system just after trial and error. But really think about your crew. It's a big deal. And crew can be the one person who's kayaking next to you and what they have to futz around with. It's a big deal, so.
Yeah, have a plan too, and not only, you can vary from the plan, but have a plan, and then have 3 or 4 feeds of all of your weird stuff. So like if you're gonna do goo, if you're planning on doing goo the whole time, great. But then have 2 candy bars and 3 Hostess things.
Have some fun
and
stuff.
Some other stuff,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we haven't hit, we've kind of briefly touched on, but things that are gonna make you actually swim better. So obviously you need sugar every half hour. That's just an easy one. You need water every half hour or hour, depending on how you drink. But you're going to need a certain amount. You can't take more. There's some other things though that are really important. The first one is caffeine. If you're going on a 10K swim, you should have some caffeine. Not a lot, but probably 2/3 of the way through, you should have caffeine. Second thing, Tylenol and ibuprofen. They are critical for a medium or long swim. Maybe not on a 10K, but I would pop 2 before I go off. The trick is that anybody are there any doctors in here or nurses or anything? Okay, so I'll give you very unqualified advice, but it's very, very important. You can't take more than 5 doses of Tylenol in a day, and you can't take more than 5 doses of ibuprofen in a day, ever. It'll destroy your liver or your kidney. So what you want to do instead is alternate back and forth between the two, because Tylenol is cleared by the liver and ibuprofen is cleared by the kidneys. Everything except Tylenol is cleared by the kidneys, so whether it's ibuprofen or Aleve or whatever. So go back and forth and you can have it more often. If you're doing a 12-hour swim, that would be 6 doses of Tylenol. You can't do that. It is deadly. It really honestly can kill you and can harm your liver in really horrible ways. So alternate back and forth between the two and you got no problems. Cam, when he did his big old 48-hour swim, like when he goes these long swims, he can't have as much. He's got to limit it to 5 doses a day. So just be careful with that. Tums or Gaviscon. Just like you've got your meds. There's not a problem with taking meds. You're not allowed to take steroids. You're not allowed to take opiates. You're not allowed to take pot for any of these swims, and it'd be dumb to do any of this alcohol. That's all stupid. And I think all 3 of us feel very strongly you never drink before you swim, ever. Never drink when you're swimming either. I know we've got an event out here. I think it's dumb, just so that I'm on record, everybody knows that. But Tums is another good one too. Tums or Gaviscon. It kind of settles your stomach sometimes. Coke works.
Coke is a nice thing to have on board.
Yes.
Exactly as a treat. That could be a real boost.
Yeah.
I know I've used that and sort of within a couple miles of a finish. That's a really nice boost.
Coke?
Yeah,
Coke.
well, or any carbonated, whatever.
Yeah, I like Diet Coke better, just because
but
it's
more flat than.
there's some flat for sure. And then the other one is chocolate. Chocolate, like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Chocolate. It really,
Nice
honestly,
treat.
it makes you feel better. It just
And even if you're in salt water and your mouth is already impacted, so if this is not a nutrition tip, but it's mouthwash. So if you can, on every other feed, your crew gives you a little bit of a small thing of mouthwash just to get the salt out. That is a pro tip. You do not want to have a peeling tongue. It is not fun. So.
I've never had that.
What are we doing when we're using mouthwash per se?
I typically, if it's more than 5 hours, I'm
Yeah.
gonna, yeah.
See, and I haven't had any problems with peely tongue, but I know people have had that.
I've had
And then caffeine, if you're caffeine sensitive, you have to, dose that caffeine very carefully.
Yes, even if you're not caffeine sensitive, dose it very carefully.
Yeah.
Start off with 20, then go to 40, and you become more sensitive as you go. So
6,
20, 40, 60,
12.
80.
I don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
Can you just add too that the Tylenol, ibuprofen, and caffeine, even if it's a goo with caffeine, your crew on your swim plan and training plans, your crew needs to know when is the last time you've taken, we ask every swimmer before they get in the water, did you have any pain relievers today? What did you have and at
That's a
what
great
time?
question, yeah.
And it needs to be marked, and it needs to be marked on your log sheet that they are not, that swimmer's not to be given that until after this time. And if you are caffeine sensitive, we actually separate out the caffeine goos and put them in a different colored box because we don't want to accidentally hand the goo out to somebody who is caffeine sensitive and they're going to bonk with 2 hours left.
Yeah.
So it's like really like your crew documenting for yourself and training your crew for your swim is probably where we've seen things like where we've had to step in and like go, okay, no, we're going to do this now.
Now, have you
So-
taken ibuprofen on your swims?
I have, but it's not very often.
Yeah.
It's
no,
not
but
very
I don't,
often.
and I don't.
I usually go
It's
6
unusual.
hours, and then I alternate back and forth every 2 after that.
Are you taking it prophylactically, or are you taking it because
Kind
you
of
need
both.
to? In my feeling,
Yeah.
if I need to take it, then maybe I should. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Going back
That's
to
just
the mouthwash thing though, Cam told me something that's really interesting. He used olive oil
Oh,
to coat his tongue.
Really?
I
Yeah.
bet that worked, but ooh.
Yeah, you swish it around your mouth and
okay.
spit it out. I mean,
I
he's
can
going
see
in
that
saltier.
working.
I mean,
It's
some of his
really
swims have been really
Yeah,
salty.
yeah.
And his 48 hours in salt water, but mouthwash has worked fine for me for every swim that I've done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Wow.
just
We
if
can
you get to
just
that
send
level,
that to-
Ariana might get to that level.
Oh, I don't think so. I have a question, might be a Sylvia question too. But is there ever, and it's don't think I'm trying to not eat during these swims. But is there ever a time where you would have to really, like there's a current changing and maybe you have like a half hour to push through the current, so you're like, you just gotta risk it. Or like just like push through like not doing a feed.
That's not your
Like,
decision.
no window.
Not your decision.
Oh, so I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
not your decision. You gotta give up
Could it-
control.
could it
She's
happen
right.
though?
Yeah.
I agree.
We will,
We've been there.
yes, so we will hear if we know we can see the timeline and we see things and we see the velocity changing and we know there's traffic, we'll either, we may make you feed early. So even though you fed 15 minutes ago, we're feeding you now because we probably can't feed you again for another 45 minutes because we need you to get through and we need you to get across the shipping lanes, we need you to get through another shipping lane, or we need you to get to this waypoint because we've made arrangements on your behalf to do a passing maneuver with a tanker coming out. We're not gonna explain that to you.
No.
We're just gonna say, you eat this now and then eat another beer, go.
That's
and
why
then
you're-
there's times we're gonna hold,
Yeah.
then there's times that we're gonna hold your feet because you're doing fine, your cadence is fine, and we see that it smooths out. I'm like, no, we're gonna feed you 15 minutes later. And we do it on Tahoe too, because Tahoe there are currents, and there are spots that I won't feed in on a slow swimmer, because they're gonna get pushed 150 yards. And the other thing is fast feeds. Like, we spent January with English Channel pilots, and the number one of the things we're talking about, to like as we're all the pilots, Robbins Island, English Channel here working together, is fast feeds, please. And keep it under 30 seconds.
Where's my English
And
channel?
talk about drift on a slow feed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really big deal, and really, I love what Suzanne said. It's like you really, it's your crew who's there to manage everything. Your job is just to swim. It is just to swim, to get to the other side. I see it a lot with when I've crewed for swimmers, and I know I've kind of run into this myself. You sort of start to think and architect like what I should do. You just you're wasting mental energy, which is wasting energy, and it really is your crew. So these are great questions because it really is something that you have to become comfortable with, kind of, because I'm definitely a person who I like to plan and like to do all this stuff. You just have to, your job is just to swim and let it go and choose a crew and you really feel confident about it and you know who's going to do that for you.
And
Who's gonna
knows
really-
you.
Yeah.
And
right.
knows you.
Yeah.
So
It
this
doesn't
is-
always work out that way because sometimes your crew can change last minute.
Or you get the crew for the swim.
So this English Channel swim was anywhere from 5 seconds. Yeah, so it probably averaged about, I don't know, what is it, about under 30 seconds. There was one for 53, something must have happened there. But yeah, so it was anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20, 26.